Welcome to Sympiphany, a Baltimore Symphony Orchestra podcast. I'm Jennifer Barton, Senior Vice President and Chief Revenue Strategy Officer at the BSO. In my role, I get to hear the stories and ideas from our musicians and audiences about how music shapes their lives. And now I'm inviting you to the conversation. Each episode features a simple question and opens the door to personal reflections, behind-the-scenes moments, and even surprising ways that music touches our lives. So stay tuned at the end of the podcast for next episode's question and your invitation to join. To kick off the podcast, I had a conversation with the man leading our movement, our own music director, Jonathon Heyward. We recently announced that his tenure will be extended through the 2030-2031 season. And I think after hearing this conversation, you'll agree with me. It's going to be a really exciting time as we continue to connect and inspire people together through music. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. You're starting a movement here in Baltimore, and that makes symphonic music something for everyone. So I want to dig into that. What does it mean to you, and what role do you hope the BSO plays in people's lives?
You know, what's so magical about the orchestra and the organization is how the orchestra started off. It's probably one of the only orchestra, if not the only orchestra in America that started really from the municipality of the city. So from its beginnings, this orchestra was for the city. And when you have an organization that starts like that, you can feel the foundation of it really sort of resonate from the bottom up. Everything that the organization has done since its inception has been about the community and has been about what should always shape the artistic sort of identity of a community. And I think when I had the great privilege of being asked to become the music director of this fantastic symphony orchestra, for me, it was such an honor because I knew that what I wanted to do is consistently think about creative ways to authentically share this movement, this idea of what a symphony orchestra can and should be for a city. And it's the best vehicle, this organization, the orchestra, to be able to really make impactful change. And that starts from the ground up. It starts from asking our community. It starts from being curious, which I think the BSO has always been. Mm-hmm. You know, it's always been an organization that has been curious. It has always been an organization that understands the great importance of what a symphony orchestra can and should be for a community. And so, you know, whilst I'm maybe creating this movement and hopefully it's being felt, I think it's also a huge part of the BSO's DNA. It is really in the fabric of what makes the BSO the BSO. And so it's been great, even as I go into my third year, to feel that movement, to feel that sense of direction that we're doubling down perhaps on what the BSO has always been about, really.
The orchestra as a vehicle for people to have, their own kind of journeys. And I think that maybe something that I'm hearing from you is the breadth of the journeys that you come across in Baltimore is, it's really interesting, especially because we not only play in Baltimore, but also have our second home in Strathmore. So you come across even more people, and it's almost as though there's a bridge, that the orchestra is making kind of physically and, community-wise each week. So if I'm a listener who hasn't spent a lot of time around the BSO, what are some of those moments that might let someone know, yes, I belong here?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll start with the moments that happen in our concert halls. As you of course, pointed out, one of the things I am so proud of, and I completely am guilty of waving the flag, the BSO flag, very high on this point, which is that we have two homes in one state, and we're the only orchestra in the United States that has two regular homes that we go to on a weekly basis. And I think when we talk about those homes, we have to think about what we're presenting in those homes. And these shows, these performances, these moments of connection, which I hope they always feel like when people come to see a performance of the BSO, really have to reflect our community in a meaningful and powerful way, right? And so I think one element of how people can maybe see themselves is by what we present on stage. So thinking about a variety of different voices, so we can span a whole sort of variety of demographic and a variety of voices. When you cast the net that wide, I think it's hard not to connect with with a particular person. And I think that that's what we're consistently trying to do when we're thinking about our programming, whether it be on the classical series or whether it be on the popular series. This idea of these incredible performances that, of course, Steve Hackman does with the fusion, but also how we then can bring voices in the classical realm, and then how we think about our family. Programming is key when we're thinking about this, and that's just within our homes, right? And then it's about how we think about ourselves beyond our homes, beyond our four walls. We're actually trying to reach out to the communities and go to places that maybe you wouldn't expect a symphony orchestra to be in. And being able to have those two approaches, to be able to think about meaningfully and authentically about what you're presenting in your own homes, but then also being creative and curious about presenting this amazing art form of symphonic classical music in a variety of different places that people may not expect. I hope that people feel seen by those sort of two directions that we're really taking in a really meaningful and authentic way, to be able to connect so everyone can see themselves within this art form and taking part of this art form.
Yes. And as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about the different ways that you show up outside of the traditional classical music director role that you're playing. You have been involved in the Young Composers Project here. You've had some really fun memories at runouts to Fort McHenry, for example. And this fall, you're going to be doing the family concert. It's your first one with the BSO. And we're all really looking forward to that. That'll be in the end of October, around Halloween. That's kind of where so many relationships start with the orchestra. So many of our patrons, even those who have been coming for 50 years, tell us about when they came as a kid. What was your story as a child? What's shaped this belief that classical music has a purpose that's even beyond the sound that we all get together and experience?
Yeah. I think it always goes back to this incredible middle school and high school that I attended in Charleston, South Carolina. I went to this school called the Charleston County School of the Arts, and there was such a variety of people in this school. You got accepted because you did an audition and you wanted to be there. So you had just a melting pot of different people from different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, race, religion, creed. I mean, it is all so different, a variety of that coming into one space. And so for me, experiencing that for 7 years and seeing how you could have a variety, so much of, different backgrounds coming together through, what I was sitting in, which is a symphony orchestra. Even just that, of course, this art school had dance and theater and all the other stuff. But just in the small silo that I lived in, which was the symphonic world, and seeing that melting pot, it became so easily sort of installed into me that this art form and using, as you said earlier, an orchestra as a vehicle to express this beautiful bridge, within humanity, which is something I often think about. It's powerful. It's something that I felt immediately, and I think that that's part of the great passion that I have, other than the music, of course. The music that we get to play is some of the most extraordinary music on the planet. But that aside, the unity that is created, both on and off stage, was something I was able to see at the age of, 11 or 12. And I was so moved by that that I thought, wow, this is the sort of sphere. And I think that was a moment really that I could, even as early as that, I could feel the power and the synergy that came within this amazing art form.
There's a through line so far in what you're saying, and that is that it's really all about the blend of the music on stage, the blend of the ensemble, and also the blend across the season, the intentionality that you put into your programming, which is something that I think audiences are really enjoying from you since you've started your time with the BSO. And we've talked a little bit about the need for the diversity, but it goes beyond that. You can't just put a bunch of different things together and have it work. It's an art in and of itself. And so we know that the blend is important, but I'm curious about how you choose the right message or the right combination of all of these elements that you're putting together to meet the moment. Because this is a pretty important moment for music in the world and the impact that it can make and the messages that you can send with what you choose to present.
Yeah, no, it's such a good question. And at the core of it, I'm always thinking about the audience. I'm always thinking about what should they leave with after this performance, and what can we give them? How can they be fulfilled by the end of this performance? And it starts with having discussions, with people and understanding, what people have enjoyed in the past and what people maybe haven't enjoyed and what people are curious about. And I think what I love about the Baltimore audience is that you do get that feedback, through great things like Afterwards with Heyward, which has been a really fun series that, after the concert, we have a direct discussion with the audience about what they just heard, which is amazing. I mean, some of that feedback I've definitely taken on to consider my programmatic decisions, because I think it's fascinating, but to hear, well, how many times do we get to hear directly afterwards what audience members experience? So, it's a collection of data and information, but also it's something that I really enjoy. I love this sort of chemistry experiment that comes with putting pieces together. And, I'm currently in my office and I have an area where I just sit and I listen through programs before I get the green light. If I sit through it and I don't enjoy it, then I change it. I adapt things consistently. And you have to be fully invested in the full experience and the audience experience. And I enjoy that because it's about how people leave the hall and hopefully feel very, very fulfilled. So I think that's what I'm thinking about constantly within the programming. And that is sometimes difficult when you're dealing with a 52-week orchestra as well, because you have such a huge scope of classical music that you don't want to repeat too many things, and you don't want to only play one genre, sort of specific genre. You have to have this eclectic sort of kaleidoscope of different repertoire. So again, it's not only about that evening, but it's also about the arc of the season as well. It's a fun puzzle piece that I enjoy, and I have a great team, of course, at the BSO that also enjoys it. And I think that we have fun. We have fun doing this. It's always fun putting these wonderful programs together.
I can tell that the listening is paying off, because I had the personal privilege of putting together playlists of every single classical concert that's happening next year. And shameless plug, in our new app, people can go through each of the concerts and they can listen to exactly what you're talking about. And from my personal experience doing that, it really does click. And while people who are used to going to symphony concerts and have been having a long relationship with the BSO, I think they appreciate that. But even a listener who is stumbling into the BSO for their first time, maybe it's intentional, maybe they don't know the depth of the music that they have chosen for that day. We offer those pre-concert talks so that people can learn about the music before they hear. That's for some people. It's not for other people. But we have this very interesting part of the experience that is how people on any given night, the audience is a mix of those first timers and those who are put, the orchestra at a core part of their personal lives. And I think you kind of get to hear about that. You're talking about across a whole season, the balance that you put together. And some of those concerts, I think, are probably really intentional about getting new people in, and other concerts might be about exploring something else in the orchestra's life. And so as you're thinking about your programming, how do you think about serving both ends of that spectrum, knowing that in any given concert, up to 40% of the people who are sitting in the hall haven't ever seen the orchestra before?
Yeah. And what a great thing. I mean, and what a great challenge in a lot of ways is that, that's the case. I mean, 40% new to file or new to the whole lovely art form. It's great. It's a great thing. And I think, I don't take that responsibility lightly. Having said that, I try not to divide the listeners in my mind because, again, I think there's a great sense of relatability that comes with these programmatic decisions. And I mean that to the listeners who have been with us for years and to the listeners who've just joined us for the evening. I think that they can even relate to a listening experience. And so I be honest, I don't know if I'm tailoring in per se to one audience or another. It's all the same package in a way, and it's all the same experience. And maybe, I don't know, maybe some of the programs, and maybe you could tell me, some of the programs are better suited for one listener to the other. But I tend not to think in two camps because I think, well, I hope programmatically when I'm programming any of these programs that both listeners come out fulfilled and not one leaning towards the other, I like finding that middle ground line so we don't even have to divide the camps, if you will. I think that's my thing. Is I know I've done a successful job when a subscriber who's been with us for many years and a new listener can turn around and have a great evening. And I think that I think that's my aim, really, actually. Yeah. I'm not really even putting him into two camps.
I guess that's a place that I come from. You put together the programming and then we figure out who's going to show up for what things. And we try to send that message. But something that you have a tendency to do that I think is a really strong element of that is combining the familiar with the unfamiliar. The through lines are, I think, very intentional. I mean, as you said, they're intentional, but there's a lot of depth to that. And, that's one of the things that we have started this podcast to try to explore, is that people are coming to us at all different places on their musical journeys, and they're going to have a great time no matter what it is, because the orchestra is fantastic and always giving top level performances. But my hope for this podcast and these episodes is that people develop that sense of taste and reaction, and even the ability to hear those things that you put together and say, I like this, but I was not sure about this other thing. Yeah. It's okay to show up to something and not necessarily like it, especially when you understand how connected all of it is. And so I think that you're doing a job as our fearless leader to take us and introduce us to repertoire that we may not know, or things that we have fun discovering. And to just kind of bring it all home today, no matter where somebody is on their listening journey, if you could suggest one simple thing that anyone could do today to bring more beauty into their life through music, what would that be?
I think whenever you're attending a live music performance in particular, but also just listening to music in general, being able to receive it with an open heart and an open mind, I think, is the way to truly be sort of fully invested and fully committed into the listening journey, right? As you said, there's plenty of music that I don't like. There's plenty of music, that, there's things that I kind of like. And, it's all part of this amazing ability to remain curious as well as listeners. And I've written often about this wonderful idea of the art of listening and what this means and how we can really learn how to listen in a more meaningful way. And I think, sometimes and I'm very guilty of this, sometimes we're very sort of wired to just turn off after something we just don't like, right? But and even like the news or something like that, anything, like we just easily we can switch off. It's kind of just a regular human reaction. But if you can remain curious, actually, and commit to just really authentically listening in a way that is so freeing and open, then I think you enjoy the process. One enjoys the process more, and you certainly, I think, leave feeling more fulfilled. And that would be my sort of suggestion to this wonderful listening journey that we're all on, which is remaining curious and keeping sort of an open heart and open mind to anything that you're receiving, essentially.
I'm thinking about when I saw you conduct at Lincoln Center last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, and I think it was Beethoven too. But I was expecting one thing, and we got something really different. And I remember, I just wanted to go home and listen to that for a whole week, because I was like, wait a second, how did he reimagine this piece for me? And I think that's one of the fun things that I want to invite everybody. If you know the pieces of music, that's great. If you want to listen to them and learn them before you come out, that's great. It's also great to just show up and do kind of a blind listen. And
no, it's fun.
Yeah. I just want to close out this part of the conversation by saying that, this first episode, we're really, really way up in the stratosphere, talking about why it's important that we even think about our music listening journeys and your role in curating all of those. But we're going to have so much fun in this conversation as it evolves, asking those questions, really inviting people to get specific with some of the experiences that they've had. For example, when is a time that you stood up and clapped and no one else did, and it's your most embarrassing moment at the orchestra? We want to hear about those things, the great things, the funny things, and we really hope that people will participate. And Jonathon, you're going to be joining me sometimes as a question answer, and sometimes as a guest here, and we're going to bring this community together, because there's so much that I wish all of you could hear each other saying about the experiences that you're sharing at the BSO. And that is just a taste of our conversation. I could talk to Jonathon forever, and now we'll get a little bit more time to do that with his exciting contract extension. So now it's time for your voice to be heard. Our next episode's question is, what is the wildest symphonic musical lore that you've heard? We'll have a conversation with Aubrey Ford, Principal Tuba of the BSO. And Aubrey is always a fun time, so I know that you're going to enjoy it. You can go to bsomusic.org/podcast to submit your answers and maybe even be featured in this space. Thank you again to Jonathon for having a great conversation, and thank you for listening. See you next time.